Looking for Britain's next skeleton star, diving into the country's most successful winter. A group of young women walk through the car park at the University of Bath's Sports Training Village and into the woodlands, taking their first steps towards a potential Olympic gold medal. Hidden away here, just across the road from Bath Cats and Dogs Home, is a 140m push-start track, the only one of its kind in the UK. It is mild, it is wet, it is May. These are not the conditions in which skeleton athletes go about their business. Who's done a worm before? Donna Creighton, the former skeleton racer, asks the athlete. Today they will travel at a speed that would hardly disturb a pigeon, let alone win gold, but one of them could do so in future, not at Beijing 2022, but at Cortina d'Ampezzo in 2026. This track in Bath, which falls and rises but does not turn, is one of the main reasons why a country renowned for drinking tea is also a world leader in sliding downhill at 90 miles per hour on a tea tray. In March last year, British Skeleton announced Project Milano, Girls for Gold, a talent search for athletes between the ages of 17 and 25 who could be turned into champions. There is no grassroots skeleton in the UK. It is either high performance or it does not happen, so all 250 or so prospects, with one or two exceptions, had never pushed on a track before. About a third of the applicants were invited to Bath to demonstrate their speed and power. This was then whittled down to 22 athletes by June, to 7 by August, living and training full-time in Bath, and now to 5. Only in November did that initial septet travel to Norway and for the first time perform on ice, working up piecemeal from the bottom of the track like a child learning to sled. Cara Brown and Kelsey Stewart, the two athletes most recently cut, have not been discarded altogether. They are entitled to filter into UK sports from home to the Games program, if they choose to continue. At least 4 of the final 5 will stay as full-time athletes, ready to compete in the 2022-23 season. Skeleton returned to the Olympic program in 2002, with Alex Coomer winning bronze. 4 years later Shelley Rudmond took silver. Since 2010, the women's Olympic champion has been British every time, Amy Williams in Canada, followed by Lizzy Yarnold's back-to-back success in Russia and South Korea. They were Britain's only golds at the past 3 games. Yarnold was a heptathlete before taking part in UK Sports Girls 4 Gold in 2008, which identified skeleton as a suitable pursuit for her. She and Deas first tried the sport on the same day. Prospects for the women's program tend to come from athletics, with multi-eventers particularly promising, while the men come from a more diverse sporting background. All 5 of the remaining female athletes, Ashlyn Bland, 22, Isabella Fasnage, 18, Eleanor Griffin, 22, Abigail Peake, 19, and Barriet Iowawi, 21, have backgrounds primarily in athletics. Mitch Smith, who was strength, conditioning and starts coach for British Skeleton before joining Bath Rugby last month, cited a high dropout rate as a reason for that. A lot of the girls that continue doing sport in this country are either from an athletics background or they are at a really high level in the sport that they were doing anyway, so they're potentially not really super interested in talent transfer, Smith told Last Year. Comparatively in the boys, there's so much more recreational activity and high-level recreational athletes. It is very much anecdotal, but it is probably conducive to their ability to pick up new skills if they've been exposed to a lot of different movement skills already. What we're really thinking already within that is how effectively are this group of athletes going to pick up not just pushing, but also sliding, which is very different to being able to run in a straight line. British Skeleton knows that a fast start is key, and that glory follows from there, which is why they feel comfortable in paring candidates down to 7 based on their attributes before even putting them on ice. They test the athlete's speed and power through 30m sprints and stiffness jump. While these attributes are used for initial screening, it is only one part of the picture. Those observing the sessions, with athletes coming to Bath in groups of 10 or so, note who encourages others and talks when it is not their turn. Other factors are taken into account. There are questionnaires to ascertain the athlete's mindset and resilience, and to get a thorough training and injury history. Position in the school year will also be taken into account, given that some prospects are under 18. The athletes are plotted on a graph showing physical performance, based on numbers, versus potential, based on subjective markers. While the athletes are accustomed to running fast, they will never have run in the way skeleton requires. Having long arms help. It puts them in quite an awkward, bent-over sprinting position, and some people just haven't got the levers or haven't got the mobility to really get into that position very effectively and put themselves in a powerful position, Smith said. We probably try not to cut people based on one factor. If someone is a standout physical specimen, but they might not necessarily take to the skills straight away, but we see something in them that makes us think they will be able to take to it, then it would be a little bit silly to get rid of them. We're trying to look at it as a whole bigger picture. From some of the research we've done before, We feel it's probably quite advantageous for people to have a long arm length, because it gives them a little bit more room and they can be a little bit more upright compared to someone that might have short arms but long legs. It's probably the best screening tool. You do find out pretty quickly if people can get into that position or not. Then if people can't get into that position, it's about trying to understand why and whether or not it is a limiting factor that can be developed. The last thing the program wants is for an athlete to be part of the program, spend time on ice, and realize the sport is not for them. Life as a skeleton racer involves driving across Europe in a cold van between places that are not all that glamorous, and with about 120 runs a season lasting 60 seconds or so, a racer spends only about 2 hours a year actually doing their sport. Team GB are sending 4 athletes to Beijing, all graduates of Talent ID. Deas, the only Olympic returner, had a broad sporting background, primarily in eventing. Brogan Crowley, a former junior heptathlete whose idol was Dame Jessica Ennis-Hill, Matt Weston, a former taekwondo and rugby union player, and Marcus Wyatt, who considered exploring semi-professional American football in Europe after his time playing for Swansea University. What may seem strange to outsiders is Britain's success at skeleton compared with a lack of interest in luge. While a quartet of medal hopes are going to China for the former, only Rupert Staudinger, who finished 33rd in Pyeongchang, is going for the latter. Staudinger, who has a German father and British mother, has relied on an International Olympic Committee scholarship and sponsorship, which dwindled last year due to COVID, to compete. He lives in Germany, the dominant nation for luge. We don't have any funding, Staudinger told last year. Compared to the other nations, where they have a lot of staff and people with knowledge, equipment, we compensate quite well with our team spirit. In Germany, the government spends a lot of money on sled technology, more millions every year. They have a lot of staff. Even in the youth, they probably have 50 people. We basically just have 1 or 2 coaches, and then our head in Britain. We have to do it all by ourselves, where we get our sleds from, book our hotels, flights, transport. We can't live from our sport, so everyone has to make sure they get off work or whatever they do to earn money and plan the season like that. Staudinger suggested that the Cresta Run may be behind Britain's relationship with skeleton. St. Moritz Tobogganing Club was founded by Britons in 1887, and the famous Cresta, which is descended in a unique but similar manner to skeleton, retains British influence. Stephen Bartley, honorary archivist of the SMTC, does not link the two. I don't think it's because of the Cresta, he told. It's a different discipline. Even in skeleton's first appearances in the Olympics, both in St. Moritz in 1928 and 1948, there was a British presence. David Carnegie won bronze, as did John Craman 20 years later, one of 4 Britons in the top 9. Though British athleticism and innovation are to the fore in this niche pursuit, fuel for the naysayers' fire is obvious. What is the point in being so good at something no one does in a low-performance setting? Wyatt suggests that, despite our climate, we are a nation of sliders. When it snows in the UK, there's loads of kids chucking themselves down snowy hills on sledges, so even if it's just that kind of stuff, he said. We've all come from different sports, so there is definitely a lot of not a traditional path, but you can definitely get into it. It can turn athletes like myself. I wasn't going to make it in my other sports, and it's transformed my life. So if that's the legacy, then that's brilliant. It is definitely a case of success breeding success. Skeleton might have been in a similar position to luge in 2010 if Williams had not won gold, with the sport's funding at risk. But in 2018 UK Sport allocated £7.2 million to skeleton, the most of any winter sport.